Hi friends, let me show you how to do a one-piece fly. There's been a lot of requests about it. So first thing you need to do is to understand what the measurements are. So on both of the front pieces, you need to make sure you go out about 6 mil or a quarter of an inch out. If you look at it on this side, you can actually see it's a little notch. Now this actually is the length of the fly itself, and how you create the one-piece pattern piece is actually, this piece is actually double the length of the fly, and it has a 1 centimeter seam allowance on this side and another 1 centimeter seam allowance on this side. This one I'm showing you is a selvage version, but it's pretty much the same method as doing selvage and non-selvage version. So let's first of all prep what we're going to do. We need to mark each side of the panel pieces. So this is the wearer's left, so this is a big L that's gonna go here, and the wearer's right is going to go here. So now we've marked left and right, and now the first thing we're going to do is prep both the sides. On the wearer's right, where the notch is, we don't necessarily need it, so we're going to mark off the notch. So we're going to do it so it's straight against the seam allowance, so that's the extra notch, and then we're going to go in about 1.2 centimeters or half an inch, and we're going to square it off where the notch is. That's the first bit of prep we have to do. Then on the wearer's left, it's slightly more easier. All we're going to be doing basically is cutting in about half a cm or so where that notch is. So we've created about a 1.2 cm lip there. And then on this side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut it again about 1.2, just before the chalk line. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually press our one-piece fly. So if you follow me over to the iron. So all we're going to do, this is a selvage version, we're only going to be pressing the opposite side. So about 1 cm we're going to press. And then what we're going to do is we're going to match up the selvage right up against that folded edge. It could be a couple, 1 or 2 sort of millimeters away as well. It doesn't have to be right up against it. Amazing. So now we've prepped our one-piece fly. So all we're going to be doing, first of all, the first step is we're going to be basically inserting in this inside to here. But before we do that, just as a safety measure, we're going to be chalking on a guideline, a halfway line, so we don't go over it. Because if we go beyond that line, we're going to sew it actually wrong. So now we've got the halfway point. So now we can match up the halfway point to this point here, squeeze them in, and we're going to cover up the chalk line. So the very first step we're going to do is we're going to now go over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew all the way down there. So if you follow me over to the sewing machine, that will be great. Now obviously in a factory we don't use pins, so we're going to cover up that chalk line. We're going to make sure that this little lip actually is not inside, but it's outside. We're going to have this guy hanging out just there. We'll cover up the chalk line. So make sure you do a back stitch right at the beginning, and then you go for it. Now I'm going right up against that selvage or against the folded edge. It doesn't really matter, but you just need to catch it. And now we make sure that's like that. And now we're going to close up the selvage line, selvage one-piece line. Do the back stitch and that's finished. And then we double make sure that that bit catches there, and we've made sure we caught it on the other side. So we're looking good at the moment. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back over to the iron and we're going to prep the other side as well. So on the wearer's left, we need to create the 3/16 double fold. Now we've already cut in about a centimeter, so you can actually see it. So we've actually created enough room to do our impossible double fold. This is the smallest double fold ever. It's called a 3/16 double fold. So we're going to go in about a quarter or so. And it doesn't matter if it's a bit wonky, because the second fold is going to make it all straight. Amazing. So now we've done our possible and double fold, and it's hit our notch. So the next thing we're going to be doing is an edge stitch down here. So this edge stitch is a 3/16 edge stitch. So we don't want this stitch to be close to the edge here. We want it to be a little bit further in. On some sewing machines, you can actually use the edge of the foot, but my machine is quite a big fat foot on that one. So I'm going to use half of the foot. And all we're going to do is we're going to actually begin on that notch. So we're going to align ourselves up, make sure the needle is downward before we go. do our back stitch right at the beginning, so we've done our hard work, and now we're going to follow it along. So I'm using my foot to help me create that 3/16 edge stitch. So now we've created that stitch. It's 3/16 away or 6mm away, and we've caught it on both sides. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go over and I'm going to create my buttonholes to put on the one-piece fly, and then we're going to sandwich these bits together and finish it up. Before we create our buttonholes, obviously we're doing a chain stitch buttonhole, so it's quite important to understand where the buttonholes are going. We're going to be 3 buttonholes on this garment, and we need to make sure that we accommodate the seam allowance, and then after that we can balance out our buttonholes. So I'm just going to just do it by eye, but you guys will have a template for where the buttons are actually going. So as long as they're equal along the fly, and we're all good. And I'm marking the back of the buttonhole so there's no misunderstanding. And now I'm going to go over to the buttonhole machine and I'm going to put those buttonholes in. So now we put our buttonholes in, obviously we clean up all the loose threads, don't need them anymore. Obviously my buttonhole machine is not working as best as it could be, but you get the idea. So make sure we clean all that up. So the joys of having vintage kind of like machinery. You always get buttonholes and stitches that aren't perfect. So now we put our buttonholes in, it's fully sewn in. So now we're going to marry up both the sides. So if you follow me over to the sewing machine. So now both sides are fully prepped. The wearer's right, we've inserted the one-piece fly and put buttonholes in. We've sandwiched it in and we made sure that lip is hanging out. And on the wearer's left, we've done the 3/16 double fold and caught it in one step. If you notice, I've always sewn with the presentation side always out. So don't try and sew this on the wrong side, although you have the bobbin side showing here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to prep the fly itself. And this fly is going to be like a normal Levi's fly. It's going to be about 1.5 inches away from the finished edge. So we make sure that we chalk in our guideline. So that's going to be where our guideline is. And then we're also going to do the shape of the fly. So it's going to be a nice curved shape there as well. So now we've prepped that in. So the only thing we have to do now is we have to sandwich these bits together. This is where we actually make sure that we eyeball it and we really make sure that everything's looking good. We make sure that that line is really straight. And we make sure that this left panel piece goes over the fly by about 3 or 4 millimeters. I'm using pins, but you guys won't be using pins. But make sure that it's a little bit over, and we pin it in such a way that we can sew over our pins. So now I'll put pins in, and then we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're going to be sewing on that guideline there. So I'm going to open this up, and this is actually an indication if you've sewn it correctly, because these bits should all match up. So this one is matching up really well, and we're making sure that this whereas left piece is over by about 4 or 5 mil. So now we've done that, we've prepped it all. So all we're going to do now is we're going to sew our guideline. So let's do that now. Make sure the needle's down, and then we go for it. So I'm following that guideline, straightening off. So I've done my first pass. Take the pins out, don't need them anymore. And now I'm going to do the second pass. I'm going to do it so it's more premium. So I'm going to use the original line as a guide. I'm going to do my back stitch first of all, and then I'm going to open it up. So this is where I'm going to slowly tease it. So this is going to be my second line. And I'm going about 1/8 or 3/16 away from the edge. So there, we've done that line now as well. So that's looking good. Always clean up as you go, any loose threads and stuff. So the only thing we have to do now is we just have to clean up where the felled seam is in the bit where the crotch is. So obviously this seam is going to be going this way. It's going to be following that. So we're going to have the fold line kind of like this. So as long as we know that, the rule is quite simple. The direction of the felled seam is going over, the left-hand panel is going over the right panel. So all we have to do is make sure is we create a little lip. And normally when you do a felled seam in the industry, you make sure that it's going over by about 1 centimeter or 3/8. So we're going to actually process this or do it so it's basically over it. And because this is on the bias, you can actually stretch this bit out and make it fit however you like. So I'm making sure that the left hand panel is going over the entire thing by about 3 or 4 millimeters to create that lip. Great. So now I've done that and we've made sure, can you see how I've pinned it? I've pinned it this way. So all we have to do now is make sure that this bump here doesn't get caught. So I'm literally folding it away. I'm doing it so it's really out of the way because I don't want this stitch line even going like near it. So I'm putting another pin in just to help me. So all we're going to be doing now is we're going to be doing a 2 cm felled seam. So we start at 2 and our target is to actually meet the 3/16 line we made earlier here with that double fold. So I'm doing a chalk line just so you can see it. I normally do it without a chalk line, but I'm going from 2 cm all the way to there. My target is to try and hit that or go as close as I can. That's my target. So now put that under the machine, do a back stitch straight away, and now I'm following it along. I'm curving it round and I'm making sure that this panel piece doesn't get caught. And now my target is to hit that line there. I'm going as close as I can to it. And when you go to it, you can go back. There you go. So now we've done that. We've hit that line, taken all the pins out. And now all we're going to do now is complete our felled seam. And we can do this on the iron or we can just do it right now. I'm going to do it right on the machine. So I'm going to fold this round over it and create that 1/4 or 5/16 felled seam. So we're going to go over there. I've got a compensating foot here, so it kind of helps me a bit more. As this is a curve, you need to make sure that you're pulling your work apart. And I'm doing it so it's as neat as possible. I'm making sure that this point here is nice and clean. No one will notice what you've done here. And then you just be very brave and you just sew it in. Now I'm going as close as I can to that seam there where my fingernail is. And that is it. So now we've done a complete clean one-piece fly with the buttonholes. And if you're going to do a non-selvage version, you would actually fold this bit over by 1 cm. So this is I've done the selvage version, but this is a non-selvage version. So all you got to do now is you just need to put your buttonholes in. You put your now you open up your buttonholes and you can put your buttons in as well. And that's how you do a continuous one-piece fly.